called a chatter because it means everybody's happy to see each other or knows where to go for help. So this is our official first district leadership team meeting. September has proven to be an extraordinarily tricky month with the calendar. So this is the only meeting where there's a conflict. Come on in, Chuck. Unfortunately, you're going to have to sit.
Seats right up front.
But this is the only meeting where there was a known conflict, hence welcome Bobby. We are filming just this session. All of our other sessions, the materials will be transparent and online, and Jonathan will talk a little bit more about that. But I really want to thank everybody for being here. This is the first time in years that we have managed to do what we've been intending to do. And Cora and I have been working on it for 6 years, and Cora worked on it before I did. And we are really thrilled to have what we would call a really representative group. We have teachers, administrators, community members without kids, parents with kids, and a lot of different areas of the community represented. I just saw higher ed just walked in from Maris. Welcome. We have there's an organized meeting of the religious groups in Hyde Park. They just get together informally, just because we all service the same children. We have town board and historical society, and town board, he's not here tonight.
He's not here tonight. There's a special meeting.
That's right, there's a special town board meeting. So we lost David Ray from the historical society and Joe Marine. But at any rate, we're just and board members. And Danielle is from HPUE. And Shirley Turk is from Donna Van Leuven is from CSEA. So we have all 4 bargaining units here, community members, board members, parents, staff, everybody. So you could imagine that it's no surprise that it took this many years to get this combination of people. So we are thrilled. I think maybe should we do introductions before
Sure.
we introduce
Yeah,
you?
that's great. That'd be great.
Let's start by introducing Jonathan. Jonathan Costa is, you see all of that up tonight. He will be our fearless leader over the next several months, and I didn't say fearless so that you go on the warpath. I mean fearless in that he's just very much engaged in this process and really forward-thinking. So I
Thank you.
think fearless in that way. And we'll be learning a lot more about Jonathan and his work, and specifically looking at the book that he published about digital learning, but more on that later as we go through the process. So with that said, I'm Greer Rychak, and I am the proud superintendent of this school district. And Bobby, introduce yourself.
I'm Bobby. I work in the tech department, and I'll be billing tonight.
Okay.
Barbara Sweet from the community. I've been retired from IBM over 20 years, volunteer at the FDR Library, and also at the Town Hall Media Committee, where we transmit all the, and record all the town board meetings and other guidance. So we're trying to keep the community informed.
Hi everyone, I'm Danielle. I'm also the
I'm Chuck Kramer. I'm the record assistant. I'm John Vanderley. I'm a community member. My wife teaches in the Hyde Park School District and a music teacher at Alpha Smith and North Park. We have 2 graduates from Hyde Park. I'm interested in the education process in general, and I volunteer in various areas of the performing arts. And I'm a Rotarian.
I know I'm vegetarian too. I forgot to say. We're supposed to say that every time we.
Right.
Well, that's a lot. I'm just Perry Sheldon. I put the Board of Education here, and amongst other things.
Good evening. Julio A. Torres Jr., Senior Assistant Director of Admission at Marist College, also the coordinator of multicultural enrollment.
I deal with a lot of our partnership organizations, community development, as well as recruit in the Hudson Valley, Albany, and Rockland areas as well.
I am here, my name is Kelly Marshall. I am here representing FDR. I have 2 children that are juniors.
My name's Emily Broomhead. My daughter's a first grader at Hyde Elementary.
I'm Teresa Gasparini. I'm representing Ralph R. Smith as a parent and PTA member. And for what it's worth, I'm a class of 2000 here graduate.
Hi, I'm Melissa Lawson. I'm the principal at Ralph R. Smith Elementary School. And I'm here representing both the elementary school, but also the administrators.
I'm Donna Van Linden. I represent CSEA. I'm also a bus driver 15 years for the district. I have 2 children in high school here at FDR. I'm a 1982 graduate of FDR. And I'm just an advocate for children. I like to help out in times of need. And this book has really opened my eyes. I'm really excited to see where this goes.
I'm Jeff Danielson. I'm on the Board of Ed and parent of 2 FDR graduates.
I'm Carrie Palermo. I am a Ralph R. Smith PTA member. I have 4 children ranging as of today from kindergarten to 9th grade in Hyde Park.
I'm Doug Eder. I'm the president of the Board of Education.
I'm Cora Stumple, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction and Human Resources.
Mary Beth Scattergood. I teach with Greater Front Park and I'm the president of the HPCSD.
I'm Jen Kaiser-Aid. I'm the Director of Humanities for the district, and I'm also the president of the HPAA.
Roger Gill. I'm a community member.
I'm Felicia Olson. I'm, in no particular order, a graduate of Roosevelt High School. I am the parent of someone who just graduated from Roosevelt High School. My daughter is a freshman there. I'm a teacher at North Park Elementary School, and I've been in the district almost 30 years.
I'm Aviva Kafka, Assistant Superintendent for People Services.
I'm Marianne Mullen, teacher at FDR and HPCA Vice President.
What do you teach, Teresa?
I teach government and economics.
Oh, cool. I'm a recovering history teacher at the high school level. So welcome, everybody. Standing behind a podium is not a good look for someone who's 64 inches tall. So it's sort of like, hi, everybody. You know, if I speak, I really like to speak at elementary schools because they have furniture that's like the right size. But for the sake of filming, I'll stay back here tonight so they can capture this. But it's really hard for me to stay still, but I will try. I'm a former high school history teacher. I have been a planning and school improvement consultant since about 1990. I spent a few years in the for-profit world while my wife was getting her graduate degree at the University of Michigan. I worked for Domino's Pizza, believe it or not, at the distribution headquarters in Ann Arbor. And through the last 25 years, I have led districts through about 50 strategic plans. I don't think anyone in my state of Connecticut has done more facilitation of strategic planning than I have. I currently am the coordinator for the state of Connecticut's 5-year plan on behalf of the commissioner and the State Board of Education. And it's with that background I tell you that this will be nothing like a strategic plan. One of the things I came to find out about strategic planning was that the factors that play into a traditional strategic plan lead people to want to get everything that they need to get out of it. And what ends up happening is that the energy for improvement gets so diffused by everybody trying to get a piece that nothing changes in the system, and very, very rarely does anything change systemically overall. So about 2.5 years ago, I got a grant from the Nellie Mae Foundation and worked with the Danbury Public Schools in Danbury, Connecticut to try a different approach to what we used to call strategic planning. And what this really can be summarized as is this is a back to basics planning process if we all agree that basics 2050 is our goal, not basics 1950. So how do we create a improvement process where we focus on every child's ability to acquire the most critical skills and attributes they need for success in a digital world, and to focus the improvement energy of the district on achieving just those goals. So if your main purpose in participating was to get more money for the band, or to improve the sports program, or to improve any specific area of the process, I'm going to leave the existing school improvement, program improvement mechanisms to do that work, because I'm sure you have them. I'm sure you do. You have board meetings, you're responsive, you pay attention to those details, and those things change from year to year. This is about setting goals for the district that probably won't change, because if we do our jobs well, we'll be identifying skills and attributes that kids will need into the future. So your main work will be to get as many kids to acquire those goals to ensure their success beyond Hyde Park as we possibly can. So this is about identifying the most important things that kids need to know and be able to do, the most effective teaching practices for getting them there, and the best way to assess, measure, and give them feedback for growth on their way to achieving those goals. That is really all this is about. So our process is designed to uncover what matters most, connect it, and make that the focus of improvement over time. And tonight is really sort of like the fire hose of what this means and what it looks like. So if you want to get the hell out of here and not participate based on the new information you have tonight, you have everything you need to know to do that. So here are the 5 questions I'm going to try to answer for you tonight. Sort of like, what are we doing? What will it look like if we're successful? Why are we doing it? How we get there? And how do we get started? And that's really our framework for tonight, and I am dedicated to getting you out on time. So that's what we're going to do. You received an email from me about access to an electronic folder, and I don't want to go any farther until we look at the contents of that folder, because we are looking at a digital world, and so all of the shared materials for this process are in that shared folder. And essentially, I'm just going to give you a really quick visual orientation to what these folders are and how they'll be used, and then we'll walk through how what is going to happen. So, for example, here you have this the folder called Common Materials, and you'll notice when you look at the screen. Sorry, I can't. There are different kinds of icons and yet another folder within it. There are 2 kinds of resources that get put into Google Docs folders, for those of you who haven't used Google Docs before. How many have? How many Google Docs users are there? Okay. Dropbox, any Dropbox users? Okay. So this is sort of like a Dropbox folder in that it's shared. So when you see this thing right here, this P, Intro to Coherence Hyde Park Public, this is a PowerPoint file that has most of the slides I'm going to use tonight. So you want to go home, you want to open it up, you want to look at it, you can do that. If it's got a P, a W, or an X, those are those 3 things, you should notice that those are Microsoft Word documents, right? But they're in a Google Docs folder. So if you wanted to actually work with them, you would double click on them and download it or save it. And it will make a copy of it and put it on your hard drive, okay? You can double click on it and just look at it in a view mode. So if I wanted to do it, it won't do it for me because I own it, but you can, for anything that's a Word or Excel document, you can download it and use it or view it statically in the folder. The one thing you must not do is delete it. Because while having a common electronic folder is a wonderful thing, we're all in it together, we can all see, we can share, you can all put stuff in here. So in this folder right here, this high leverage goals document, folder, has resources in there about what are the most important goals that kids need for success in the digital world. You have an article that you found, you want everyone to see it, you can drag it from your computer into that folder and we'll all be able to see it. But if you delete it for everybody. Okay, so no deleting. This document has a different icon. You can see these two have a little different look. They were created in Google Docs. So if you open those, we can all open that and be in it at the same time. So this document called Hyde Park General Information Page looks like this. I'll make it bigger. And you can see the little icons up here. Those are all of you joining in and looking at it at the same time. And we could all type and work in this right now, all at the exact same time. So I will use the general information page to post stuff, to keep notes, to pose questions. If you have questions, you can text me, you can email me, you can post a comment in this general information page. Any Google Doc can be opened and worked on simultaneously. It's the screen. It just varies the laser.
You sure?
I think so. See,
Mm-hmm.
green?
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, though. So any Google Doc folder we can work in at the same time. And the final document that we create, we'll do a Google Doc so we can all contribute to that at the same time. So you have a combination of viewable resources and interactive resources in these folders. There's a participant list in there. There's the general information page. If you want to look at what this final thing will end up being, this is actually a final coherence mapping template that we'll do at the very end. But you can see, very straightforward, goals, measures, and practices for the district. You can cut and copy those goals into each high school template. If this works well, the way it's worked in other places, basically 60% of your annual school improvement planning is done collectively every year because you're working on the same goals for all kids, and you share those goals across all the levels. So you can play with that and look at it. I drove right by Netherwood Elementary School on my way in here. And that will be a big part of our final product, and I'll share what that looks like in a minute. Inside the high leverage goals folder, there's just more resources for you to look at. This document right here, Coherence Planning Report Final B PDF, that is a document that is an example of a finished coherence plan from Danbury. So if you really want to take a look and see what this will end up being, you could take a peek at that. In the other folders, each one of these folders has the planning resources for the team that you eventually will be on. And I'll explain that as we go. So there are going to be 5 data collection groups that we go through once we set our goals. And each one of those folders contains all the information you need to do your job on that team. So all our work is in that shared common Hyde Park folder. So at the end of this session, if you have not been able to get access to it, I will stay and we'll help make sure you can get in it. If you have a Google email, that is the best thing Google and Google love to talk to each other. It's a little bit more complicated with non-Google email, but it'll still work, and I'll get you there. So that's that. Just questions about that?
I'm just thinking if
Yep.
somebody didn't have a Google email and wanted one, I think we could get you a full Google email address for this purpose.
Yeah. Or you could just do it individually. Google Mail is free, and it's a free service from Google, and it's free for schools. So if you're interested and want to create a Google address, you can do that too. Yes.
I was able to set up both.
Okay. Cool. Okay. The resource called slideshare.net, JP Costa Sr., I have just about all of my non-coherence planning content is up there. Digital learning advocacy, high leverage skills. I speak frequently, and I have content on SlideShare if you're interested. That is my email, and that is my cell phone. If you text me with a question, please identify yourself. You say, hi, I'm, 789, blah, blah, blah. I'm on the Hyde Park Planning, so I can have a context for the text when it comes in. But I think I say in the general information page, if you send me a text and you don't hear back from me within a couple of hours, you should call my wife and tell her that something terrible has happened to me, because it never takes me that long to respond, unless I'm playing golf, and then it will take 5 hours, but that doesn't happen very often. So, just questions about digital access at this point?
Just one.
Sure.
Is it easy enough to, if I want to download it into a PDF file, can I do that, or is it not allowed? So that I can access it offline.
You can download anything you want.
Okay.
Yep. Just don't sell it. But you can download anything you want. There's one other trick when you're in a Google Doc. If you didn't create it, when you first double click on it, it'll come up within that black border, and there's this little icon in the upper right hand corner of the screen. It has a little square with a pop out arrow, and you click on that, and then you're in it, and then you can actually type it. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So the what are we doing? Here's my best side-by-side for the rationale behind coherence planning. I'm trying to create a shift in thinking, and the elements that you see on the left, to me, are attributable to the failure of strategic planning in a public school setting. We try to plan for a digital future using analog results. We are more concerned with what we have done than what we need to do. We try to improve everything rather than learning from the past, knowing that some things are more important than others, and if you do them well, inevitably you get farther than spreading your energy across many unconnected systems. This next one is a challenge for some people. Coherence planning and site-based management are compatible at the practice level, but not at the goals and measures level. The reality of it is, if you are in a pre-K to 12 system, you really can't just set any goal that you want, because you've got to send those kids to the next place. Coherence means pre-K to 12 coherence in goals. We are working on the same things to prepare these kids for the future they will face beyond Hyde Park. You can't have different levels with different visions of student success. It is a prescription for failure. Now, there are many different ways to get kids to be successful at different levels, and everyone has the autonomy to decide what works best there. but they have to be contributing to the same thing. And one of the litmus tests for our success will be, did we pick something that truly everybody in the district can be accountable for? Because if you set a goal for student learning that 40% of your teachers know they have nothing to do with, you set a really bad goal. Because what you did was you said, okay, all you folks, you're accountable for that. Everybody else, whatever, go ahead. It doesn't work. If it's going to be a district goal, it has to be a district-wide goal. So we connect the levels, we connect the systems, and we make an effort to measure what matters. Data for data's sake, measurement for measurement's sake, measurement for the state's sake is a waste of time. The most glaring error in our pursuit of student success is our preoccupation with measuring things that most people know in the long term have no value for students. That doesn't mean we're not accountable. It just means we have to be smarter about how we measure student progress. And the reality of it is the things that are easy to reliably measure are cheap and of little consequence. Things that are important are really hard to measure. That's why it's really important that you only have a couple of them, because it's impossible to do more than that well. That allows you to focus on being accountable to your mission rather than accountable to a checklist or accountable to a bureaucrat. We want to be accountable to students and to parents for preparing them for success. That's our purpose. And my guess is nobody walked into this room tonight thinking to themselves, you know what the problem is here in Hyde Park? The problem here in Hyde Park is we are just not working hard enough at this. That's it. We're just not working hard enough, so let's do a strategic plan so we can all do more work. Woohoo! That'll be great. Well, my assumption is everyone is working about as hard as they possibly can. Are there exceptions? Absolutely. But they are rare, and they are far and few between. So why would you build a system based on the exception rather than the rule? My assumption is that you are already working as hard as you can, which leads me to the inevitable conclusion that the only way to help more kids do better at the things that matter most is you have to be doing different work. You have to make better choices about how you set goals, about what teaching practices you engage in, and about what assessment practices you engage in. This is not about doing more of anything. It's about being more efficient, effective, and strategic about the things you do. So here are my planning assumptions. And I'll tell you, if you are committed to anything in red, this is going to be a really frustrating process for you. So take a minute, turn to someone nearby, and just talk for a minute about what this slide says to you, means to you. Does it make sense? Is it frightening? Do you need more detail about any of them? There will be more detail coming up about some of these things as we talk about the what will success look like and how will we get there. But if there's anxiety right now, I want to know about it and address it quickly. So take a minute, turn to the person next to you, and just have a discussion about how this slide strikes you and what it means to you, and do you have any questions about what's up there?
You're in it too. I know the one that That's what strikes me as most important right now is to make high leverage choices. Because they're the target.
Measuring what's valued.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
X, Y, Z,
Okay, it's dangerous. I have a mobile microphone. This poor guy is going to be busy tonight because I am not standing still anymore. Questions or comments based on just your table discussion? Yes, sir.
In addition to just being on the Board of Education here, I also work in the Red Hook Central School District in a facilities position. And in listening to what you said, one of the things that I got a hold of, and particularly, is measure what you have to versus measuring what is valued.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're in New York State. I know you're in Connecticut, but you must hear about what goes on over here in New York State.
Well, you are not my first New York State client. So, in fact, I have a special slide just for New York State.
So to me, that's one of the challenges that I see in this process is, I think, and from a facility standpoint, I'm always looking at going beyond, not looking at how we do it today, but how we should be doing it. Continuous improvement. But there's always the regs that we have to, we've got to satisfy the regs.
Sure.
And I got to tell you, there are days and weeks on end that I don't leave my desk because I'm just doing something that either State Ed is requiring, or Department of Labor is requiring, or PESH, or something, and they're useless. They're absolutely useless reports that we're having to do.
So there are two strategies that my New York clients use, and I'll just talk about them very superficially because we're being recorded. And then we'll go into more depth later. The most promising strategy, and one that I have the best evidence of success in, and it's about 6 years worth of data, is do the right things the right way and the other stuff will take care of itself. So if you worry about measuring a meaningless thing, but you've taught a kid to be a better problem solver, you've taught a kid to analyze logical arguments based on evidence, and to articulate his or her position and interpret them, then if I am given a low-level test or assessment, I can ratchet my thinking down, but it's really hard to ratchet your thinking up if all that has been done for you is you being challenged with low-level work. So if you do the right things the right way, the measures that aren't of any value generally take care of themselves. And that is part of making a high leverage choice. So if I've got 10 things I could work on to help you improve, I'm going to pick the most important one that I do the least well, and I'm going to invest in improving that, knowing that if that improves, there will be collateral improvements in other areas. And that is almost always true. When you do the right things the right way, you can shorten the curve on the compliance checklist. Fill in the blanks, do what they ask you to do, but don't invest time in driving those measures. Because if you drive the right measures, the people that matter most will be satisfied with your product, and the things you hand into the state are for them and not for anyone else. The other strategy is just tell them what they want to hear. Just check the boxes. Just do it. And do what you want to do when you're on your own. And I've had clients do both of which will remain nameless. But, there has been a shift. So in my state, in Connecticut, the whole focus has shifted to growth. We know you can't inspect a teacher into success. You know you don't lose weight by weighing yourself every day. It is what you do every time you're not on the scale that matters the most. Teachers know that they need good feedback about what matters most in order to get better. An inspection regime doesn't work, so Connecticut has shifted that focus dramatically. I heard from my friends in Brewster, they had the Charlotte Danielson update training on observation, teacher observation, and 4 years after I told her to her face she had too many indicators to do well, the state of New York has encouraged districts to focus data collection on just a couple of indicators. So even they understand that it is impossible and of no value to spend all of your time collecting shallow, meaningless data and expect it to have an impact. You have to pick things that work, that matter, and improve them. And when you do that, things do get better. So if you are out of compliance with the checklist, but all your kids are doing better on all the things that matter most, go ahead. Have them come and tell you to change. And then I want to see that board meeting. It'll be a good one. Yes, sir.
You get to decide what's the right thing is.
You do.
And how do you know it is the right thing?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think when you dig into the data around most critical goals for student success, you'll see that there's a pretty clear convergence. I'm going to ask a really quick prompt in about 20 minutes. And my guess is that I'm going to ask you to write 3 things, and I will bet I'll give you my car keys if 90% of you don't have 2 of the 3 items that I would say statistically, data-based, say are the most important high leverage goals. The things that we know kids need to be able to do well are not a mystery. And there is 100 years worth of data on it. And the digital world has changed it to a degree. But some 21st century skills are also 14th century skills. They're not a mystery. The only thing that's a mystery is we don't measure them or pursue them like we know we should. So what the goals are is up to you, and you will make that decision as a group. It is your most consequential decision as a group, but it's really not hard to find, and I'll bet you all know the answer already before we even start. But you'll have an opportunity to look at all the data. Tony Wagner, he's got an opinion. He's got 5 or 6 of them. If you start doing Venn diagrams of what everyone thinks are the most important things, there are things in the middle that always come up. They're not a mystery. I'll show you 4. You'll be in good shape. Okay? Yes?
We were talking about advanced placement, but then, and I was saying that the school might want to look into, rather than hold back a lot of seniors, just move on and work with 2-year community college and get them through the 2 years. But then I'm thinking of some of my younger friends who have to go to remedial.
Sure.
Okay, so we've got.
Yeah, I understand. And
we're tugging at each other.
And the goals that we're going to work with are goals that we're going to have for all children. And we're, just to be clear, and this will come up in a minute, most of what we do on a day-to-day basis to prepare kids in their subject areas, American history, AP Gov, AP Biology, these things are all still going to happen. The challenge is that there's this overriding set of skills that kids need to do all of those courses that if we don't pay attention to, then who will? The kids that are going to take AP Chem, AP Gov, most of them have acquired these skills. And basically, one way to think about this is 50 years ago in Hyde Park or 75 years ago in Hyde Park, kids who went on to higher ed got many of these skills because they just did. They were in academic track courses, they picked up these skills and were successful in school primarily because they had these skills. The 50% of their peers or so who didn't acquire these skills, didn't go to higher ed, they went to well-paying, honest, credible, blue-collar work. That world is gone, right? I mean, 95% of our workforce requires these skills. So we can't just leave it to chance that just the highest performing kids will get these skills. We have to create a system to ensure that everybody has them. You know, I did a process like this in my hometown, which I drove through on the way here, Sharon, Connecticut. And I had a classmate who went to Wesleyan, a very highly competitive liberal arts college in Connecticut, very expensive. And his mom was in the audience, and she said, Jonathan, you know blah. He went to Wesleyan. He mows lawns. He owns a landscaping business. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. He chose to do that, right? If you have all these skills and your choice is to do X, that's your choice. If you don't have those skills, you don't have any choice. Your choice is, do I want to say, do you want fries with that? Or, you know, would you like that, you know, with caffeine or not? Exactly. I mean, this is about preparing as many kids as we possibly can to have the skills they need to make choices about their own future. Because when they leave you, if they don't have both the content knowledge and the ability to use it, they have a limited future. That's it. We have 100 years of experience preparing the content area, and that work still must go on. Content still matters. But if you can't take that content and apply it, can't take that content and communicate it, can't take that content and solve a problem, really, what good is it? So that's really the shift. Yes, sir.
I would have said, at least when I was growing up, a long, long time ago, that my parents had the biggest influence on my critical thinking, the way I looked at the world, the way I looked at finances, the way I looked at almost anything. And that doesn't seem to be the same case today in many facets. So you're asking the education world to make up for things that normally would have.
I mean, I think
that when I was not successful in high school so much, but when I went to college, fine. I was, you know, because I had the basics. You know, in my family life. And, you know, my parents didn't rely on the teachers who they knew, who lived in the community, they were all to do the kind of things that we're requiring, really, and it's a requirement. In our district, and the world is different.
The world is different. And one of my consistent messages in this work is the world is different. Get over it. The world's different. You know, you can't design a system based on your hopeful memory of the past. Now, there are certain things that we want to fight to keep and fight to not let go of. But you also have to design a system realistically understanding that an ever-growing population of children don't have that. So how do you help them be successful or as successful as they can be? And in every situation, there are anomalies. So there are orphans who never had any children who go on to great success. There are children with fine, loving, supportive parents who get caught up in things that they shouldn't get caught up of and never recover. What is the primary common cause? What can we do? How can we do the most good for the most kids most of the time? That's our focus. High leverage choices, right? You plan for common causes, you take care of special causes as they arise, but you don't design a system based on a special cause. It is a recipe for dysfunction. It never works. Really quick. So the plan is really this simple. When you're done, you will have created a plan to ensure that these things happen. That you will have identified, defined, and committed to supporting a focused set of appropriate student goals for learning to ensure student success in life learning and work beyond school. You'll have committed to the most successful high leverage strategies to make that happen for both student learning and adult learning to help them get there. You will measure, you work over time to measure what matters, which is, by the way, the answer to number one, and that the other systems at work in the district will be aligned to support that. This is the process goal page. This is what we're going to do. And everything we are going to engage in is designed to end up there. Many of you are sitting there, perhaps, looking at that going, well, isn't that what we're supposed to do anyway? Yes, indeed it is. The shocking thing, especially what always comes up in number 3, is it very rarely actually happens. Because we are so overwrought with trying to satisfy everything that we work really, really, really hard, but we never really make any progress. So how do we create a system that identifies, commits to, measures, and teaches the things that matter most for kids? That's what we're trying to do.
Jonathan,
go ahead.
Before you leave that
Yep.
slide, one of the things that we talked to a lot of the people who are here today about is that organizing these systems to support those
Yep.
goals. We have never gone through the budget season and said, here are the goals.
Yep.
Or so many, there's a bunch of us here who were on the facilities committee and did a lot of great things, got a lot of great things done. But we're at a crossroads. We don't have any big projects. So, anything to do with the facilities then would support those goals. So at least for me personally, I'm looking forward to having all of the systems looking at the student goal first and not planning in isolation, or as people remember my slide on the silo theory. So
usually what happens in terms of resources, and we'll talk about budgeting, is there is redeployment of resources around high leverage teaching practices, high leverage professional learning practices that are aligned with that. There is resource deployment invested in helping build capacity to measure what matters. The honest, dirty truth is that the reason we don't spend a lot of time measuring the things that matter most is because it can't be done by isolated teachers working alone. What a good argument looks like, what a well-constructed argument looks like, what a elegant solution to a problem looks like. That requires a community to talk and share examples and calibrate their thinking collectively. Because if I asked you all to answer that question, tell me, write 4 or 5 sentences for me about what an elegantly designed solution has in it. My guess is there are about 25 people in this room. I'd have about 25 different descriptions. We all agree kids should be able to do this. That is going to be very high on the list of goals. You can think logically, create arguments, and support them with evidence. Okay, it's the most important goal. We have 25 different interpretations of what that looks like. How in God's name are you going to teach it? You don't agree on what it looks like. So building some coherence around what does success look like on the things you say matter most, that takes time. You got to sit down a team. You got to take a stack of papers. You got to put them down. You got to talk about them. You got to score them. You got to put them in piles. These are 1s. These are 4s. Let's argue about the 2s and 3s. This is what you've done with writing rubrics probably in the past. But it has to be around the things that matter most. So that takes time. Time is money. That has a budget implication. The only tangible thing other than time that's probably about this in terms of redeployment is infrastructure for digital learning if you don't have it. And we can talk a little bit more about that as we go as well. Another way to think about what success will look like is this alignment. And for my professional friends in the room, this is going to be a shift in some way. Because in order for this to work, you will help us decide what that district level focus is. But then that focus has to translate to the school level. And it has to translate to focus at the teacher level before it can finally end up driving and changing student learning. If you are out of alignment from the school to the classroom, you cannot reach the student. So success will look like us creating a system that allows this to occur in that improvement planning takes place in an aligned, collective manner. So people are focused on doing the right things for the right reasons in the right way to ensure kids learn what they need to be successful. And I'm going to show you a couple of different ways of organizing this, but in the end, this is what success will look like. And that Danbury plan that's in the Common Materials folder, if you read it, it describes the rationale they use, why the Nellie Mae Foundation funded the creation of the process, and it shows what it looks like when this is occurring. Okay? So, before we do this, those sandwiches are just asking to be eaten. Get up, go back, get a bottle of water, get a sandwich, get a packet of mayonnaise, come back to your table, and then I'll give a strong hour and we'll get out of here. Okay, let's go. Here we go. 45-minute fire hose coming at you. Here we go. We're going to keep it going and keep it interesting because I know you're going to fall asleep. So, remember, this is the why are we doing this segment. And I mentioned earlier, some 21st century skills are 14th century skills. Leonardo da Vinci, Vitruvian Man, balance, right? What do you think of when you see this image? What do you think of when you see this image?
Who put that together?
What's that?
Who put that together?
Who put that together? Good. What's it? What's that? Balance. Also, is it peaceful, right? I mean, it's peaceful, it's balanced. Happy marriage. Happy marriage. Excellent. My guess is this is communicative of a sense of peaceful balance. And we are more productive in our lives and in our work when we feel like this. The challenge is we haven't really felt like that much. Right? Everything on this slide is only 3 years old. All of it. How do you maintain a sense of balance in a world that looks like that? And so, you know, you have these challenges when you're not feeling in balance. When you feel like this, it's hard to be productive. And it's because we feel like we are pulled toward all that stuff we have to do. We don't get to spend enough time doing the things that we want to do. We are investing in compliance, feeling like we're sacrificing mission, and we allow our worst fears to overtake our best intentions. And if you're a teacher, you're worried about your SLOs. I'm going to get fired if they don't do well in the test. In Connecticut, never in the history of Connecticut has any teacher ever been fired for a test score. Never. It has never happened. And yet, every day when we do SLO work, that's the fear. It's never happened. But we have built a system that feeds into that fear and dominates the discussion and prevents us from being productive. Yeah, exactly. So what we're trying to do is balance these things. Balance the things that we have to do with the things that we want to do. And we do that by focusing on things that matter and connect those systems together so that we can achieve that sense of balance. When I talk about mission, I'm basically talking about this 11-word summary. And, you know, my guess is that we all are here at some level because we are dedicated to preparing every student for learning life and work beyond school. That's my placeholder for mission work. But that mission has changed because the world has changed. I said earlier, basic skills, back to basics 2050, not back to basics 1950. This is a completely different environment that we are charged with preparing kids for. Life, learning, and work beyond school 1970 looks a lot different from life, learning, and work beyond school in 2020. And just think about it, right? In less than a generation, now I just have to look at my watch. Yeah, it is. I have an extra cone of Shane in my basement. We're big dog people, so if anyone needs it for their spouse, let me know. I can bring it. I can bring it next time. You know, those 3 slides, I mean, the enormity of that shift is essentially revolutionary, but the mechanics of school are essentially unchanged. And that's a challenge for us, because when you pick high leverage choices and high leverage practices, if you make the wrong choices, then the Pareto principle doesn't work. The Pareto principle is about, I'll talk about it in a minute, but if you make the wrong high leverage choice, then you don't get any benefit. If you make the right high leverage choice, you get a lot of benefit. You know, and my guess is that many of you have seen these changes. And when I do this in schools, and I do it all the time, I find it really interesting that when I ask this question, almost always the answers come out of this, not out of that. Because we don't allow teachers and kids generally to use technology the way they're used to using it in their personal lives in school. So the changes we see are at home, right? I grew up Upper Main Street, Sharon, Connecticut, in a house built in 1870. One phone downstairs, a table built for the phone, because if you were on the phone, you are tied to the wall and you are sitting there.
Long cords.
Long cords. My father, elementary school principal. You were bad, you went to your room, which was upstairs, which was Siberia, right? All the books you'd already read, all the toys you didn't want to play with, alone in your room. One generation later, I have a 23-year-old and a 20-year-old. Our rule was, you have to come downstairs for dinner. You have to leave your technology upstairs. You leave your phone, leave your computer, come downstairs. We're going to do this for a half hour. I don't care what you want to do. This is what you're going to do. That's one generation. And that has a significant and profound impact on our ability to teach kids. So how do you focus and connect, or why would you focus and connect? Focus is about finding the high leverage choices that allow you to balance the stuff you have to do with the stuff you want to do. There is a suite of things in this overlap that if you do well, you will take care of enough business on both sides to create that sense of balance. And it is about the Pareto principle. You know, Wilfred Pareto was a statistician, and he observed that in just about every system of work, there were one or two things that if you did well, they had an outsized impact on your ability to do everything else. So if I were in your language arts department at the high school and I had them brainstorm the characteristics of good writing, I guarantee they'd have a list of 40 things. But you know what? If the writer doesn't have a point, the writer can't organize their work, and the writer doesn't know who they are writing for, the other 37 things don't matter for a whole lot, because I'm not going to be able to understand what you wrote. What are the most important things? There are identifiable high leverage choices, and that's what we're going to focus on. And primarily, we are going to focus on them in these 4 areas. First of all, as a mission, why are we doing this? How do we carry it through? Goals for learning, measures of learning, and how we teach or practice. Those are the areas we're going to focus our high leverage choices. The fact that you are here today is evidence of a high leverage choice being made by your superintendent and board. And this process is going to lead us to making high leverage choices in those 3 areas and eventually connecting them. So we are about committing to those high leverage choices. And I said I was going to ask you this question. Get ready to write something down. Here you go. Get ready to type or write. I'll give you another 30 seconds to get ready. Everybody ready? All right. Go ahead. Don't overthink it. This is the die on the hill stuff. You could guarantee right now, I'm going to give you a wish. You can guarantee that every student leaves FDR High School with 3 skills that they have mastered. What would you give them? What 3 skills would you give them? Go find someone you haven't talked to tonight and share your list. What did you write? What 3 skills did you write? Share it with them. Take 3 minutes, share your 3 skills.
It's okay.
Kind of like all by myself back here.
Yeah. First 2 are right in the ballpark. This gets a little bit more specific, but the first 2 are on everybody's list. How about you, Jeff? There you go. And part of it, yeah. Yeah.
But I have 2 boys at the high school.
Take another minute. Okay, come on back. Take a look at your list or the list of the person that you talked to and raise your hand if you had one of these 4 things on your list. Okay? So that's basically 100%. So before, in response to the question, how do you know which choices to make? You already have a really good sense of it. These 4 come out of research that we've done through going through this process. And essentially what we did, and all of these documents are in your Common Materials folder and in the Outcomes folder inside. We took a document from Stanford University that looked at all of the most frequently touched on content-neutral Common Core standards. So not factor an equation, but solve a problem. And that Venn diagram was overlapped with a document that I wrote in 2012 that looked at 3 different pieces of research around 21st century skills. And what we did was we did an analysis and overlapped them. There were 9 in the middle. And then through 4 communities going through the process, these 4 got twice as many votes every single time as the other 5. So it's pretty simple to go through the process and come up with high leverage choices that people really instinctively know are critical. Your choice will be how far back in the process do you want to go. We can go from scratch, we can brainstorm it from scratch, we can survey your whole community, we can get feedback on them. Most people pick some middle pathway, so we come up with 5 or 6 or 7. We go out and ask people to prioritize them. We get their feedback. You come back and make a choice. So that is part of the process, but you can see generally where we are going to end up. And when you look at, let's say yes, go ahead.
It seems to be the key thing in those things is, how do you measure?
Yes, that is the key thing, and we'll
we don't do that.
Just hang on. Just hang on. Just hang on. Now I think you understand why we're here. So one of the things that's interesting, and I deal with this all the time in coherence planning, is people go, "Oh, come on, that's all you're going to do? 4 things? Really? You're going to go through this whole process, and all you're going to do is 4 things?" Well, guess what? If you wanted to measure those 4, then you're going to have to look for evidence of these 24. Because each one of them is complex. And each one of them has elements within it. And all of these, learners clearly and logically communicate content. Okay, what does that look like? Measure that. Now, it's not hopeless. Just bear with me. Okay? Just bear with me. So I just want to dispel the idea, if you're thinking, wow, this is going to be simple. We're just going to pick a couple of skills. This is going to be easy. Yeah, well, when you go to measure them and make sure kids actually have them, it's not easy. That's why we don't do it. Right? I always think of that JFK thing, we choose to go to the moon not because it's easy, but because it is hard, right? We're going to choose to do these skills not because they're easy, but because they are important. Critical for success. You don't know any student who has gone on to a successful career in anything who couldn't do these things at some level. So our first question really is, what will your high leverage skills be? And there are resource documents to get you thinking about it. Greer has in some way given you this book. There are other resources. Making sure we pick the best high leverage skills is our really most important task. Practices, how you get there. We're not going to linger here. We don't have much time. But I will just say, in the end, you have to have one-to-one access. You cannot prepare students to do these things in a digital world without using digital tools. Now, this is not about anything except having access, right? What we do is we take our textbook mentality. So I'm a history teacher. My assignment is we're going to read the Global Achievement Gap in AP Gov. So if I'm a teacher, that means one thing. I need a copy of this book for all of my students, right? So we think about technology the same way. If we're going to do one-to-one, I need one of those for every student. Oh my God, we don't have enough money to do that. So we'll say, until we do, I'm not going to use them. Or we'll get a lab, or we'll get a cow, and when we can figure it out, we'll do it then. But until everyone can have the same thing, no one can have anything. Brilliant. Brilliant. Equitably deficient. That's our strategy. This is about equity, all right? And in the end, a device gap is less objectionable than an access gap. I look around this room, an iPhone, an Android tablet, an iPad, an HP, a ThinkPad. You all have different devices. It doesn't matter. You're looking at something in a browser. Who cares? There are so many different ways to get kids access without you buying them. This is not a matter of money. It's a matter of policy and commitment. So in the end, you're going to have to deal with things like this, right? What will an open phone test look like? What happens when everyone can get anything from anywhere? This is where your kids are right now. But your teaching and learning practices are nowhere near that. If I went to FDR tomorrow and said to your staff, okay, the rest of this year, every test is open phone, how many defibrillators would I need? 120. And at the risk of offending my high school peers, if your test is ruined by that, your test sucks. Because you're asking me questions that are readily available anywhere, rather than asking me to do something creative or original with the answers that are available anywhere. You don't see in those, remember our skill circle, right? There's nothing there about know the 50 capitals. How about being able to research why a city became a capital? Understand the process of becoming a capital. There is a different way to think about what we are trying to get kids to do. And if having them equipped with technology that ruins a way of instructing that is underlying their entire information universe, then eventually that has to happen. Think about it. Think about it, right? We are in the knowledge business. The most powerful knowledge gathering device ever invented. There's 1 million times more processing power right here than went to the moon. And what do we say to children? You may not use it. You have no credibility with them as an advocate for learning if they have the most important thing in their lives and you tell them it is unimportant. This is not about using it all the time. It's about recognizing its role and using it to help kids learn the skills they need to use these things appropriately, right? Every kid, like every 2-year-old can use this laptop, but not every 18-year-old can use that laptop to create something of value and get a job. That's the difference. This is not about having every kid have a computer and be glued to the screen every minute. This is about a teacher who, in the moment, decides that these are the best tool for this thing right now. Take them out. I want you to use them. Because anything short of that, when a teacher has to plan a month in advance, right? Oh, I have to figure out this project so that I get to the lab right at the time when we're doing the research portion of this. That just is never going to happen. Only the crazy people are going to do that, right? Only the crazy people. Did you just do that today? Right? Right. Teachers need to be able to make the decision whenever they want to. And they can't do that unless you're at 1-to-1. You know, I'm going to come back to this because we can't give it the time it deserves. But just take a look at this lesson, these 2 lessons. And, you know, this is really the best way for me to frame the difference between focusing on content for content's sake and focusing on content as a way to build skills that you need to be successful in the real world, and how teaching is different in those 2 worlds. I gave this assignment as a history teacher about 150 times, right? Especially at the end of tests. If you finish early, open your book, read the rest of the chapter, and get ready to do the review questions. We're going to talk about them tomorrow. How is this assignment different? You know, if we spend some time thinking about what are the goals of these two lessons, right? You would say content knowledge about the Boston Massacre is the primary goal over here. That's still the goal over here, but it's wrapped up in a bunch of other things, right? Remember those four skills?
I'm going to try and get some air on.
Okay, okay. Those 4 skills that were on that high leverage skills sheet, they're all up here. Collaboration, information fluency, make an argument based on evidence, write a summary, communication. So I still want my kids to know about the Boston Massacre, but I'm going to teach it in such a way that they're going to be able to learn that and develop skills at the same time. This is not about choosing content over skills. It's about wrapping them together so they get both. And here's the irony of this. My content-based friends, well, what's the one resource required on the right that's not so much required on the left? Forget the technology.
Primary source.
Primary sources, teamwork, time. This is a 20-minute thing, right? Read the questions, read the chapter, answer the questions, get back to me. This could be a week. This could take a week. So you've got to make choices. You can't teach American history as a forced march through 300 years and expect kids to remember it or learn it. They're going to memorize it so they can throw it back at you, but they're not going to remember it. If I had kids who went through this assignment, and I had kids that went through that assignment, and on graduation day at FDR High, little Johnny comes up to me, and I got his diploma. I say, wait a minute. Who defended the soldiers in the trial after the Boston Massacre? Which kid, which class is more likely to remember the answer is, in fact, John Adams? If you engage in this content, you're going to remember it. If you memorize it to finish an assignment, you won't. Yeah, there you go. Lately, right? Right, yeah. So high leverage instructional choices. Here's your Danielson Framework. These 2 indicators, I'm here to tell you, if you can't do those 2, I really don't care about the others. You want to collect evidence on something? Collect evidence on 2B and 3C and do it well and leave the rest behind. If I asked you as a teacher, who are my teachers? Raise your hands. Okay? If I gave you the choice, we'll do just 2 this year instead of 12, would you take it?
What are those 2 that are in the box?
2B, establish a culture of learning. 3C, engage students in learning. And my argument is, if you can do those 2 things well, I really don't care about the others. I really don't. If I see strong, proficient, or excellent evidence in 2B and 3C, I don't care if you wrote your plan on the inside of your eyelid. I really don't. Because there are good things happening. Now, if you can't do 2B or 3C, I might look at the other indicators for an idea of how to help you get better at these 2. But if you can kill these two, you go ahead. I don't care about the others, because those are the only two that really matter in the end in terms of engaging kids in the learning process. And I think teachers would rather have the opportunity to do a few things well than put that little red wagon of evidence together for the night before your big conference when you got to go in and try to demonstrate all of that stuff. I'm married to a teacher who goes through it every single year. There's a New York State question, right? Whether you ignore it or integrate it, you don't have to make sacrifices for doing the right things the right way. We know if you do this stuff well, kids do better on state tests, teachers feel better about the work they're doing in the classroom. It gets better. It just gets better. Noticeably, measurably better. But our friend has reminded us we don't measure it very often. And it's really because of this. I mentioned this earlier. Things that are really easy to measure reliably very rarely are the things that we value the most. And one of those skills was meaningful and purposeful communication. Here were the critical attributes that were listed. You'll notice that several of them are aligned with Common Core standards. And there will be standardized data points. Did you take the park?
No.
So what's that?
We're ready for it.
You're ready for park.
We were ready for it a year before.
So there are, in that grid I had up there, the 4 skills and all the attributes underneath it, about a third of them have park-aligned items that you will assess if you take park ever. So you will have some standardized measures for those skills. But there are things that there are no standardized measures for, and those you would have to do locally. And the only way to do it is to look at student work and to have an agreed standard that you use to measure them. Now, there are ways to do this in a more reliable way. So let's say I had student work, and I gave his work to her to grade, and her work to him to grade. So you don't score your own kid's work. That doubles the reliability of the scoring, narrows the range of score if you don't know whose work it was. So there are ways that you can take locally created standards and make them meaningful, have them be important, combine them with the standardized measures, and you can create a pretty good profile of how well you're doing helping kids do the things that matter most. And in the end, this is what it looks like, okay? You still have content. You still have subject area responsibilities. But you also have responsibility for teaching and assessing for those high leverage skills. It's not about saying this doesn't matter. It's about saying this only matters when you can use it. And the best way to think about how this works is think about using your content in a real-world setting. And it almost always kicks it over into the high leverage skills domain. So I used this example when we were together in the summer. You're teaching environmental science. You assign a project for analyzing the impact of phosphates on the watershed. There's a new developer who wants to build a golf course in Hyde Park. Here's the fertilizer profile. Here's what it's going to add in terms of phosphate to the watershed. Your team's goal is to decide whether this is an environmentally supportable project for Hyde Park. Put together a presentation for the Inland Wetlands Commission and make a recommendation about whether this development should go forward. and present it. They have to know the content, but they have to make an argument based on evidence. They have to communicate it. They have to use digital resources to help their communication. This is a real-world application of content. So it's not about one over the other. It's about making sure you have the time and space to do one with the other. Which project would you prefer to be involved in? And finally, it's about connecting these things. And, you know, this is where it gets tricky. So I think every teacher recognizes this, right? I have a goal. I have a pretty good idea how I'm going to know if kids can do it. And this is my plan for helping them get there. I think that's, I don't think any teacher, any good teacher, has ever not made the connection between those three things. And in this diagram, that's what you see represented there. So we have student goals, student measures, and the things that we do to help them get there. The challenge is, in the era that we are in, it's not just at that level. Every year we set teacher goals, right? Every year we set administrator goals. Every year we collect data about them. And every year we provide professional learning to adults. So we have the exact same relationship, goals, measures, and practices, at the student and the professional level. Oh, but that's not all, right? Because don't we have, like, building and district improvement plans too? So we set building goals, district goals. We have building data and district data. We have building professional development and district professional development. So we have that exact same relationship at all three levels. Do we ever connect them thoughtfully? Think about this now, right? You have a public school system. You have a goal to improve. Every single day, you've got things that have to get done. That left-hand circle, the things that you have to do. The buses are going to come in. Those kids are going to get off. One of your kids is going to puke, right? Those things are going to happen every day. Every day, that stuff is going to happen. How much time and energy do you have to invest in improvement? Just think about it. If I had a whole pie up there, it's a slice that's like 2 or 3%. That's precious time that you're together as adults. It's your professional learning time. It's your goal-setting time. How much time do you have to invest in improved practice? What chance does that little sliver have when connections between these things are weak? Connections between these things are weak. Connections between those things are weak. And the connections between them are weak. Every single one of those connections in the domain and between them are like gaps in a gasket that let energy slip away. And my theory is that the reason you feel like you are working so hard and not getting anywhere is that these connections are loose and need to be tightened. If you were to take that small sliver of improvement energy and focus it, you could move your district toward the direction that you want without adding another piece of pie. It's just making it more efficient. Think about it. Stare up at that fluorescent light. You could stare at it for the next 20 years and not affect your vision at all. You want to stare into this green light for any time at all, right? This is 2 AAA batteries. There's 120 volts up there. How come that doesn't damage anything, but this will ruin your eyesight in 5 seconds? because all the energy is put in a very small sliver of direction. How do you take student goals, student practices, and student measures, and the data generated from them to improve that practice, and do the same thing for adults, and do the same thing for the district, and connect them all with those through points? Those through points are those high leverage goals. Remember that slide with all the terms on it? If you take them and you put them where they belong, you can actually make a coherent plan. Everything that was on that slide that was a mess, that gave you a sense of imbalance, is just taken and put in the right places there. If we're successful, we'll see goal setting focused on high leverage goals and following all the way through. We'll see the data line up, and we'll see the district, professional, and teaching practices focused on those things that we know work best to help improve student performance on your high leverage goals. That's what we're trying to do. Those same systems are supported by other things in the district as well, right? The community, how they are involved in the schools, how they understand the goals that you're working toward, how they understand why those things are important. All the policy and practice by the board. It stands to reason if you're going to focus on digital learning, my guess is your current policies and practices need to be aligned with that. Budgeting, time, professional learning, how you align resources with those high leverage goals. So these are the core instructional systems. This is the leadership. Obviously, all the other things that work in the district need to be aligned as well. I love the metaphor of the gears because think about it. You're trying to move a large organization. How do you use that energy that we were talking about a couple of minutes ago? It's like the engine of change. What happens if these gears are spinning at different rates or different directions or not spinning at all? You don't go anywhere. So the underlying philosophy is make high leverage choices, make those focused choices, and then connect the systems at the domain level and between the domains. I love dogs, but that is a funny cartoon. So I'm not going to do any more tonight. I want to let this sink in, but I just want to end with this. So what are our first steps? Hang on a second. This is the process that we're going to use. Okay? We're in phase one. We're committing to the principles of coherence. And basically what that means is just briefly revisiting the mission, and setting beliefs about learning, and then identifying those critical skills for student success and getting ready to collect data. Because basically what we're going to do is just once we identify what we want for those high leverage skills, we will then look at the goal setting, instruction, assessment, and supporting systems to see how well designed they are to support an aligned focus on those things. So we can't do the data scan until we have the skills that we're looking for. And once we're ready, and you're not going to read these, you're not going to have time, but I'm just going to show you. So once you have those skills, you're going to break into those 5 groups, and you're going to pursue these questions about those goals for learning. And we'll do it in goal setting, in teaching for learning, in measures for learning, in the supporting systems, and then the 5th team will be the catch-all, sort of everything else, external factors. What do we need to know about what goes on in Hyde Park outside of the schools that may have an impact on the success of the plan itself? So before we meet next time, here's sort of what we need to do. I would encourage you to go back and look at the slides again. Think about what I've put you through in the last 2 hours. You might want to think about what data collection group you want to be in that common Google Doc in the Common Materials folder. Down at the end, there's a grid of the 5 teams, and you could put your name in the grid that you think you want to be part of. We reserve the right, Greer and I reserve the right to move you around because we want those teams to be balanced in terms of school people and community people, okay, and administrators and teachers. So each team will have a community representative and a school-based representative to make sure they're balanced. Before you get nervous, the questions are very straightforward. There's a scoring system, and there's a clear pathway to get the data you need to be successful, so we'll help you be successful in that. You might think about the district mission. Is there anything you need to add or enhance or delete from it to make it fit with a focus that is supportive of this plan? How long ago was that done, Greer?
2 years ago, class, right? 2 or 3.
So, and if it's that recent, it's going to be a very high bar for making any changes. I just give people the opportunity to engage in it. I'm sure there were many hours spent over many days, and I don't want to upset that apple cart. Yep, and there it is. So, I think that's, I think it still works. We could save a lot of time by going right to skills. That's your choice. You can talk a little bit about that, Greer, if you want. And then the most important thing is the skills pre-work. Because when we meet next time, that afternoon, we're going to do some brainstorming and some selection around those skills. So I need you thinking about those most important skills that kids need to be successful. Here's the challenge. You're going to have a few weeks to think about it. You're going to want to come back and make a list that's got 25 skills on it. And it's not going to be longer than the list you did an hour ago. Okay? Lists of 10 skills, 20 skills, doomed to fail. 2 to 4 maximum. Because each skill is incredibly complex, hard to measure, and will require significant sustained effort. If you have 6 on there, fine, but it's going to be only 2 of the 6 for the first 5 years because it takes that long to do them well. So be prepared for me forcing you to the place where there is the most agreement, because that is where success lies. All right? There's a lot of background data on the most used skills in that common materials folder and in the goal 1 folder. Let me know if you have trouble accessing any of it, okay? And understanding the work model, when we get together the next time, we have a schedule where the district staff and I are going to meet before everyone gets together, and we're going to be doing some pre-work to make sure that the resources are available to help everybody do their jobs in the five teams. Every time we do that, and I think in our schedule we have 2 dates that are like that, where we're going to meet with the district staff first, we will always review anything that we've done in that session with everybody afterwards, but there are parts of this that really the staff need to engage in to get ready for what is coming. We'll always share it with you, but it's just more productive sometimes to split the work up that way, and I just wanted you to be aware of that. So that's our pre-work for next time. Skills and what group do you want to be on? Those are your 2 major challenges. I think there's we'll make a decision, but I think we're okay in the mission then, I think. Think about that.
Yeah, but anyway, I think,
Yep.
can we put it in the work? And if somebody had some suggestion for tweaking it,
Yeah.
it is very recent.
It is on the...
I think that a majority of district people that are here were in the room when it was developed,
Okay.
and certainly the board members were here when we adopted it, so.
And really what we'd be doing, if you look at the mission the way it's worded, what we are doing is defining in many ways what excellence means. Excellence means the ability to do those things at a very high level. So I think that would fit.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
I'm not interested in spending 12 hours changing to come up with one word. There's
Right.
an exercise that some of the professional development people use, like before you start something, they'll say, let's design a mission statement together. The Hyde Park Central School District blank. And everybody pretty much comes up with the same word
thing.
or something close.
Yep, I agree. 8:30, questions? I will always get you out on time. Thanks for coming. Away we go.
For the next meeting.